butterflies in the stomach are one of the most beautiful, most mysterious, and at the same time, most universal sensations that our body experiences. It is that sudden feeling that overtakes us as soon as we see someone we like, when we are waiting for an important moment, or when our heart is ignited by the emotions of love. And immediately, our stomach begins to feel as if hundreds of tiny, invisible wings are moving inside it. A feeling that we cannot control, and that tells us that something very big is happening. In fact, although we call this sensation butterflies in the stomach, there is no insect inside, but it is a biological and neurological reaction that is directly related to the way our brain communicates with the body. It is a wonderful play between hormones, emotions, and the nervous system, which transforms an abstract emotion like love into a physical experience so strong that it seems to us as if our body is flying from the inside. When we see or think about someone we like, the brain does not perceive this moment as an ordinary situation, but sees it as an extraordinary event that can change everything. And for this reason, it immediately activates a special part of the nervous system called the sympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for the famous fight or flight response, an ancient mechanism that prepares us to face great challenges or avoid danger. At this moment, within a few seconds, our body is flooded with hormones like adrenaline and cortisol, which rapidly enter the bloodstream, affecting every part of the body, from the heart that starts beating like crazy, to the hands that shake, to the face that may suddenly turn red, and above all, to the stomach that experiences the sensation of butterflies. The secret of the stomach reacting so strongly lies in the fact that it is not simply a digestive organ, but is filled with millions of nerves that create what scientists call the second brain. And this second brain is directly connected to the mind through the vagus nerve, a nerve highway that carries every emotion from the head to the stomach, making it a place where emotions are transformed into physical sensations. When adrenaline invades the body, the blood's priority is no longer digestion, but the muscles and heart that must face the emotion or challenge. And for this reason, the stomach temporarily loses its usual blood supply, feeling empty, tense, and this sudden change creates the illusion of butterflies that we feel in the stomach. This phenomenon doesn't just happen when we fall in love, because it's a general mechanism of the body in the face of strong emotions. So we can also feel butterflies when we have a job interview, when we go on stage to speak in front of the public, or when we prepare for an exam that will decide our future. In other words, any situation where strong emotions are mixed with anxiety and positive expectations. However, love is the moment where the butterflies appear most powerful and beautiful, because it is not just ordinary anxiety, but a combination of two worlds. On the one hand, the fear of rejection and uncertainty, and on the other hand, possible joy, happiness, and hope. And this mixture makes the body's reaction more dramatic and intense than ever. In these moments, the body releases not only adrenaline, but also dopamine and serotonin, creating a chemical mixture that makes us feel intoxicated with emotions, a condition that scientists describe as a chemical storm, because the body and brain experience an extreme, unrepeatable state. Dopamine is the reward hormone, which gives us a feeling of pleasure, reward, and happiness every time we get close to the person we like, making everything else seem less important, because all our attention is on that moment and that feeling that fills us with energy. Serotonin, on the other hand, is a substance related to emotional stability. But in the early stages of love, it often drops. And that is why we feel fixated, impatient, and unable to think about other things, because the body is no longer in its usual state, but in a state where love invades every part of the mind and body. This is why people describe first love as a sweet madness, because our brains are truly out of balance, and the stomach is where this madness is felt the most, with butterflies that never stop fluttering inside us. So, butterflies in the stomach are not just a romantic metaphor that poets invented to describe the feeling, but are a biological reality, a concrete sign that our body is reacting strongly to a weighty emotional moment. If we look at this phenomenon from an evolutionary perspective, scientists think that butterflies have played an important role in our history, because these emotions made the individual more focused and careful when interacting with someone who could become a life partner, and thus increased the chances of survival and reproduction. Butterflies in the stomach are therefore nature's alarm, a signal that warns us that this moment is special, unusual, and of great impact on our lives. A way for the body to make us understand that we are not in an ordinary situation, but in a chapter that deserves all the attention. This is why we often say that love is felt in the belly, because that's where our second brain is located, a complex neural network that has the ability to store and express emotions, transforming them into sensations we can't ignore, and making us feel like our body speaks a secret language. In everyday life, this feeling is clearly manifested in moments like the first date, where many people say they can barely eat anything because their stomach is so full of butterflies that there's no room for food. And sometimes, even the smell of food seems distant because the body is focused only on emotions. Over time, as the relationship strengthens and becomes more stable, the body gets used to the presence of the other person. Hormones calm down, and the butterflies begin to fade, being replaced by a feeling of security, warmth, and stability that indicates that love has entered another, more mature phase. This change is a clear reminder that love, like everything else in our body and mind, has its own evolution. At first, it is a biological fire and storm. And then it transforms into a strong emotional and mental connection, where the stomach no longer flies, but finds peace. Butterflies in the stomach are a beautiful sign of the fact that our body is just as involved in love as our heart or mind. And they remind us that emotions are not just of the soul, but have deep biological roots that affect every cell of our body. The next time you feel butterflies in your stomach, don't just see them as an annoyance or a shock, but understand that they are a clear message from your body telling you, this moment is special, this person is important, and this emotion is real. So live it with all your heart, because in the end, love is not just a pure spiritual feeling, but a wonderful collaboration between the brain, body, and soul. And butterflies in the stomach are the most beautiful and sensitive proof of this harmony that nature has created for us.